this encounter against the Ganges Grandmasters, the team of Vishy Anand. And now, can they win on demand is the big question. The players are waiting for the game to begin. It's 20 minutes each with a 2-second increment after 40 moves. And Gukesh now has the white pieces. Let's get it rolling. Starts the clock. And Gukesh opens with pawn to e4. Vishy, as always, solid, plays e5, knight to f3, knight c6, and plays pawn to g3. Vishy adjusts in the chair and says that, okay, Gukesh, you want to play out of theory? Let's go. d3 played. This is known as the King's Indian attack. The bishop jumps to c5, attacking the f2 pawn. Bishop comes to g2. And now black goes pawn to d6, white castles, and black also castles here. Gukesh pushes his pawn to h3, taking away all the possibilities of any piece coming to g4, and Vishy gains space. c4 played, clamping down on the d5 square but clearly weakening the d4 square. The knight jumps in, knight takes knight, bishop takes, and knight goes to c3. One very interesting maneuver here is knight d7, knight c5, knight e6, and Vishy begins for it, also freeing up the f pawn to move ahead. King goes to h2, and Anand plays his pawn to c6. Gukesh can now move the knight to e2, which he does, attacking the bishop on d4. You don't want to be giving up that bishop, so it goes back to a7, and now f4. Maybe a bit. Oh, he plays it. I thought it was a bit soon, but it's a good move. Pawn to f4 and b5, striking on the queen side. b3 played by white, trying to keep the structure, and Vishy jumps in with knight to c5. Gukesh pushes even further ahead. By the way, if you take here, I take and I put pressure on c6. So that's the reason why he goes knight to e6, putting further pressure on the d4 pawn, and he pushes ahead with d5. Vishy jumps in, knight to d4. But now, taking here would allow the bishop to come in and attack the rook. So Gukesh plays pawn takes pawn. Vishy also recaptures back with his pawn on e5. And now comes the move bishop e3, a very interesting move. The knight on d4 is under pressure. Pawn takes pawn taken. And now Gukesh recaptures it back with the pawn. The best move for black is now to play c5, but it's a difficult move to make, blocking your own bishop, which is why Vishy is tempted to go bishop a6, and he plays it, and this is not a good move because now Gukesh can take on d4 with the bishop. It's slightly tricky, but it is the best idea. The reason is, after pawn takes, he takes with the knight and attacks the c6 pawn, and if black takes, my queen enters in and defends the pawn on c4, and Gukesh finds it. Pawn takes, and now knight takes d4, he takes it. This is very, very good position for Gukesh. Pawn takes pawn, and now there is this little intermezzo with knight to c6, and he finds that as well. Insane play by Gukesh as he gets a big advantage against Vishy. Take with the e pawn, not with the c pawn, giving up an exchange here. Taking with the e pawn is the right decision. He takes it. Taking on, he goes bishop c5. Now taking would have been bad because of d6. The bishop unleashes, and it's a winning position for white. So that's why bishop c5 to stop the d6 move. Gukesh goes queen d3. Maybe better was queen d2, which is a very strong and difficult move, but you pressurize the a5 pawn. But queen d3 played here by Gukesh. Now Vishy has a chance to make a comeback in this game. He goes rook e8, centralizing his rook. And Gukesh must tread carefully here. He goes rook e1, a nice move. And the bishop can drop back to d6. No, he goes h5 with the idea of h4 here. The rook comes up to e4, and now you have bishop to c8. The bishop drops back to c8 on this diagonal, and we have knight to d4 to stop any ideas of control, and the knight controls many good squares. He takes rook, queen takes, and it's actually quite interesting that the position is already evened out. Vishy somehow magically has made Gukesh's task super difficult. Bishop d6, he's attacking the g3 pawn. Also the c4 pawn need to play knight c6, giving up the g3 pawn. He plays it, knight to c6 on the board, and now Vishy needs to justify this move, bishop d6, by taking the pawn, but that would lead to a bad position. The best move now is bishop to b7 or pawn to f5. He takes on g3, king h1 played, and this is already a winning position for white because c5 and d6 are coming. He goes g6 here. That's not going to be enough. Now c5 is a powerful move. Instead of g6, if you went bishop d6, then there's queen d4 with the idea of c5, but he goes g6, c5 played, king comes up to h7, and okay, d6 maybe you don't want because then he can sack his bishop for these two pawns. So he goes rook to f6. Classy move by Gukesh. Remember, he was a pawn up, so now the position is equal. Bishop to b7, and a very strong move is knight to e7. He finds it with a big threat of rook takes f7, and queen g6, queen g8 mate, which is why Vishy now sacks a piece, a complete piece, and Gukesh happily chops it off, and he now has an extra piece. Although Vishy has two pawns for it, it's not enough compensation. Rook to f3. Let's see if Gukesh manages to finish this off. Queen check, rook goes back, queen comes to g5, and now knight check, king to g7, and a very strong move is queen e7, keeping everything under control. Also big threats on the king, but Gukesh, well, he has 1 minute to figure this out. He goes knight d7, maybe not the best move. He attacks the rook, and Vishy quickly gets the rook into the game. Check, the best move, king h6, and now rook takes f7 is a beautiful move. Well, it's tricky because he takes it, by the way. He finds it. Gukesh playing really well. He's now got one pawn back. He's a piece up. The opponent has only one pawn for the piece. Come back with the rook. Rook f1. What's the problem? It's absolutely fine. He comes back. Rook to f1. Queen c3 played. And now here you have queen to d5. Queen to d5 is an excellent move, but he goes queen b6, also a nice move. Well, the queen is just very actively placed. Queen d3 by Vishy. Now Vishy has one plan, which is bishop going back, queen g3, and mate on h2. That's the big plan he has on his mind. And there you see bishop e5 played, attacking the knight, threatening queen g3. So this would really create some pressure and stress. He comes back, not the best move. Queen b7 with the idea of check was much better. But now after knight e4, rook to c2 is an insane move. He finds it. One of the threats could be rook g2, king g2, queen e4 hanging there. He comes back, queen to b3, and now queen e2 trying to threaten mate on g2. Queen to f3 played, and now the queen trade actually works for Anand. You can see him trading the queens, and Gukesh from a completely winning position has now landed in equality. It's insane, and he has like 2 seconds left. Vishy is playing so quickly. He goes bishop c4, and now it's very important for Gukesh to hold this game because his team is winning, which means that they might be able to enforce the playoffs. He goes out, defends the pawn, bishop comes back. I think Gukesh is happy with a draw. No, he's not. He wants to win no matter how low on time he is. He's playing for a win. Knight to c5. And g5 played here, pushing the pawn. He takes it. g4. Rook comes to f5, attacking the bishop on e5. And he takes on h3. Vishy has managed to and look at that. Vishy is so stressed. 36 seconds, 5 seconds for Gukesh. Gives a check. Rook, bishop to f1. He brings his bishop into d4, dominating the knight on a4. King h2. And now the king comes to g6. He takes the pawn on h3. And Vishy gives a check. King h1, shouldn't lose on time. Another check. And I guess Vishy is the one who wants to play for a win now. On Gukesh's time, he goes rook e3, rook d5. He takes on h3 with a check and shaking his head there and offers a draw, and Gukesh takes it. What a game. What a nervy game that was. And Gukesh instantly gets up to see what's happening with his team. Well, the PBG Alaskan Knights have won, and Gukesh shakes hands with Vishy. We are now going into Blitz playoff. One of the best things about this Blitz playoff is that Vishy and Gukesh will play 2 more games with each other of 3+2. I hope that you enjoyed this one. Gukesh was so winning in this one, but Vishy, as resourceful as ever, managed to wriggle out of the mess, and now we are all super excited to follow the 2 Blitz games. Hope you enjoyed.